We're going to get started. There's still a few people trickling in, and so we'll give them a chance to get here, just like as we're doing introductions. So I'll just start. My name is Kim. We might have met some of you virtually over Zoom like 2 to 3 weeks ago now, and I'm joined by my colleagues Kristen and Devin in Keeping Ways. And so we are from a nonprofit. It's called Hester Street. We do urban planning and design and capacity building and development work, mostly in New York, but also across the country. And between us, we're a mix of architects, a mix of designers, data and research experts who get together today. And we lend our skills and our expertise to community-based organizations, to public and private organizations, all with the goal of making sure that neighborhoods and cities and communities are built and shaped by the people who live in them. And so for today, we have a fairly packed agenda. We're going to start with a warm-up question, and then we're going to do a very quick recap of some of the things we talked about. And then we're going to spend a few minutes talking about data, and then it's going to come up and present that. And then we want to spend the bulk of our time talking in groups, and so all of you are working on your tables, that you have posters there. I'm going to spend most of the time talking about those. And then we're going to come back together at the end to see what everyone else said and speak a bit about impact. So when you walked in, you should have received a sheet address. Did everyone have it? And so the question we had asked was, what is one thing you wish people knew about Park Hill and Hill-Algonquin? And so we want to hear from some of you. Maybe we'll take one person from each table to share with us what they said. Are there any volunteers who feel willing to share?
My name is Dee, and I wrote, I wish people knew how beautiful the areas were in the 70s.
Thank you for that, Dee. Did everyone hear what you said?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Kathleen. I wish people knew the history of Park Hill and Algonquin and how resilient the residents and their families truly are.
How y'all doing? Happy to be here. My name is Nathan Gardner. I wish people knew that they are people who should experience happy living in Park Hills in the Algonquin area, an opportunity to develop their own community.
I wish that people knew that there are loving, responsible, and caring people who live in Park Hill, and not to judge based on what they hear or see on the news and or social media.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing those. Is there anyone else? I think we have time for one more. No? Okay, thank you for that. I think it's great to hear those, and I think it's important to recognize that even though our communities have challenges that we're dealing with, it's not everything about us. Like, we still love, we still have gatherings with each other, we still are in community together, and so those challenges don't define everything about our neighborhoods. And so I appreciate you sharing that. And so the next thing I want us to do before we go into the conversation is just talk about some agreements. And this list, if you remember, in the first or second meeting, all of you had created a list of things you wanted to talk about to help govern the space and the things you do in this room together. And so the first one was that we value everyone's voice and will be active listeners. The second is that we will respect each other and personal space. The third is that we will be bold in this project and bold in our thinking. And then we will share knowledge and perspectives and learn together. And then this will be a violence-free space where there is unity. And then we commit to healing and unlearning things that do not benefit our community. So these are a great list of agreements, and I love these. I love the idea of being bold and not holding ourselves back. And then I think just to make sure that our conversation stays respectful and productive, I think the things I'd like to add to this are just that we should respect everyone's opinions. Like, we are not here to debate with anyone. I think your lived experience and your own personal experience of your life is valid. And then I would add one mic. Kristen and Devin and I will be at the tables talking with you all. We're going to be trying to take notes. so we ask that you speak slowly and clearly and don't speak over each other. And then we know everyone's busy, you all have jobs to go to, you have your kids and your families. And so if you need to take a call, if you need to check your email, that's perfectly fine. We just ask that you step away from the table and take the call and come back. And then the last thing is just to be mindful of time. And so there's a lot we're trying to cover today. And so there might be moments where we ask to wrap up a subject and move on to the next thing just to make sure that we can keep things moving. And so can I get a nod from everyone if you feel like these are good or if you agree with these? Okay, perfect. And so with that, I just want to talk a bit about this sheet. All of you should have received this at the last meeting, and then it was sent over email. If you don't have it, that's okay. I think you can resend it over email if you need to. But just as a refresher, this list that you see here comes from the conversations we had in the very beginning. Some of you had this list of short and long-term wins that we put together. And then we took that list and organized all of those things by subject or issue area. And then in the conversation we had over Zoom, for those of you who remember, we then talked about some of the things that are the most impactful in your lives, and then this is where that led us. And so the first issue was under, or subject area was employment, income, and economic opportunity. And the overarching goal there was to implement workforce development and vocational training programs and facilities. And then there's a list of strategies under that and key partners who we think could be helpful in implementing those. And I won't talk through these now just in the interest of time, but on the table there's posters, and those posters have the strategies. I'm going to take this off just so I can speak clearly. And so those posters have strategies in them that you're going to talk through in detail. And then the second goal was environment, health, and well-being. Oh, there it is, it's up there as well. And the goal there was to create walkable spaces that encourage healthy and active lifestyles, like parks and youth and sports facilities, walking paths, community gardens, fruit trees, and forests. And then we talked about how to get to that goal. So there were strategies there about intergenerational spaces, athletic facilities, walking trails, and then we also talked about some of the partners who could help implement that. And then the third goal was under housing and home ownership. And the goal there was to build more environmentally and physically safe, low-income and affordable housing with an option for ownership. And so these were some of the strategies that came from all of you on implementing resources for families who don't qualify for credit, think about mortgage financing, thinking about existing vacant or abandoned properties, and again, listing who are the folks in the community who could help be a part of this. So residents, Urban League, other folks. And so you all have all of these, and then this QR code in the bottom and the link there, there's a very, very long list of other things that were talked about. And so if you want to see those in detail, if you follow that link, it'll take you to a sheet that looks like this, that has all of the detailed goals and strategies that we talked about. And I think the one thing I want to say about all of this is that all of these things are interconnected, and all of them are important. I know in the group I had, we talked about housing, but we talked about how housing has to be physically safe, it needs to be environmentally safe. When we talked about housing, we also talked about how is housing related to building wealth. When we talked about employment opportunity, that was connected to education because folks talked about financial literacy and how that can help folks in like building wealth and building their savings. So all this to say everything is interconnected, everything is important, but I think what we want to think about today, once we get through those, is like what do we do to make these things tangible, and then how can we talk about what has the most impact in our lives. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Devin, who's going to talk a bit about some data